Democracy is about conversations. Nation building is about dialogue. It's about arguing sometimes. It's about agreeing and disagreeing, but all done in the national interest. And that's why you had the conversations that you showed just now from the two caucuses, who are wonderful gentlemen, who are patriots and colleagues who are doing their best. Now the country is, we're going through very trying times, there's no doubt about it. And it's a combination of a lot of factors. Factors that are economic, factors that have to do with now breakdown of law and order and threat to national security and stability, and then also things that have to do with the foundation of the country, the structures of the country, the constitutional systems that we have operating in the country. So it's a combination of a lot of things. So, well, yes, it's good to say we should focus more on the solution, because the blame game is not helpful.
It won't help anybody.
It's not helpful.
But perhaps it could help in leading us to the sources of the problem.
Exactly. But even at that, we need to be very clear about who to blame. The president, commander-in-chief, and the ruling APC. They are running the federal government. What I mean is the executive arm. They have majority of the National Assembly. So we should be very clear about that, even though in the national interest, we don't want to do the blame game. The buck stops at the president's table, especially on matters of security and economy. And I've always taken the view since 2015, again and again, that when you are discussing issues about national security and national economy, that we should forget partisanship. But like I said, even when we do so in the national interest, we should be clear about where the buck stops.
Yeah, you've said it clearly. Some others have also said.
So the president has to take responsibility. President has to take leadership, most importantly. I'm talking about leadership, about what has not done, what has not been done. Let me remind all of us about, maybe sometimes the president is not given that much credit. But I was governor until recently, and the way and manner the president took leadership on salvaging the Nigerian economy that was in distress between 2015 and I think up to even 2017, 2018. It is a miracle that this country didn't collapse. And I know what I'm saying. Even as governor of a state that people think is having, derivation funds and so on, maybe about number 3 or number 4, depending on what happens, we couldn't pay salaries. State governments were struggling. The federal government itself was struggling because of a combination of factors. The oil price slump, the security situation in Niger Delta at the time, and then the change of government that made a lot of investors to be skeptical. A number of them pulled out, and the new governments talk about corruption, blah, blah, blah. Everybody was branded corrupt. So a lot of things, people were scared, and they left, and the economy collapsed.
But the prudence then demands that perhaps we should have done more.
Yeah, the president took leadership. That's the point I'm making. Took leadership, issued what they call bailout funds to enable states to survive. It's only 1 or 2 states that on their own could have managed that period. There would have been a national disaster, catastrophe. This country would have had nationwide civil unrest.
But it appears the situation is worse now.
No, I'm coming.
Printing of money, even coming from a fellow governor saying the debt burden and the printing of money are a huge trap that may pull the ship down.
No, I'm coming to that. They did that with presidential leadership and the National Economic Council chaired by the Vice President and working with the Governors Forum. Approved also Paris Club reforms. That enables states to stabilize, to pay salaries, to pay pensions, to pay all of that and so on. Presidential leadership. The Americans call it the power of the bully pulpit. And it was effectively put to use. Now, we need presidential leadership to talk about the issues of constitutional reform, which is at the foundation of a lot of the distortions that we now see. Because You have a system in the 1979 presidential constitution where too much powers are given to the center to the detriment of the so-called federating units and the local government areas. And by the way, by elite consensus, the local governments don't actually function now. By elite consensus, across party lines. So
That's
we need
is it elite consensus or governors' consensus?
Well, elite consensus, let's put it that way. Elite consensus.
You think it's not governors that are the problem with local government administration?
Well, like I said, elite consensus. And that's why you need to do constitutional reforms. People don't understand, when we say restructuring, constitutional reforms, some will even be as ridiculous as saying, oh, we don't know what restructuring means. For God's sake. If you didn't know what restructuring means, why the hell did the APC put it in their constitution? So when they were saying in their constitution that they will restructure Nigeria, what the hell did they mean? What the hell did they mean? They were talking about a concept they didn't understand, or a concept that Nigerians cannot relate to. There are several elements in restructuring. Devolution, the form of government, revenue allocation, and things like that.
So what you're saying in effect is that the way and manner the president intervened at the time we had a recessed economy to pull it back, he should also do so at the political level.
He should do so and exercise presidential leadership. You know, when the Americans left and formed in 1778, 1776, when they broke away from the colonial powers, they created the equivalent of a monarchy by means of the executive presidency. The executive presidency, the presidential system that we operate, is a quasi-monarchical system. The president is like a monarch, okay, with executive powers and all that. Very little controls.
Enormous.
Very enormous. So the president is not just president, he's commander-in-chief. He's the head of state. He's the leader of the country. All these in one man. But they tried, the Americans, the founding fathers of the American nation, they tried to put some checks and balances here and there, separation of powers, checks and balances, impeachment, and meanwhile, no president in America has been impeached, you know. So, but those things were there.
No,
so
the entire constitutional process not exhausted.
Exactly. So the president of Nigeria has enormous powers. He cannot pull back, be in his shell, and not show leadership. He has to come out and use the power of the bully pulpit to rally the nation together, to inspire the country.
To bully the nation positively?
Well, that means putting the power, the positive influence and authority of the presidential power to an appropriate cause. That's what it means. For example.
Yes, I wanted you to go into specifics.
Yes, specifics.
The steps.
Using the bully pulpit. The president's party has done a very exhaustive job in the area of restructuring. At least one component of it, a critical component of it, devolution of powers. When the APC, I think, rightly did what they promised in their constitution by saying, okay, set up a committee chaired by the governor of Kaduna State with my colleague and friend, Senator Adetumbi, as secretary, and other members. And they did a very exhaustive work. They went as far as even drafting legislations that can bring that to be. What we need is presidential leadership. The president's party promised restructuring. The president's party campaigned on it. The president's party has majority in the National Assembly. And the president's party has brought a roadmap for that. If you devolve as proposed, even by the APC, you won't have a situation where governors every day will be crying with hands on their heads, like widows, crying because they are helpless in the area of protecting the citizens of their states. Like Governor Tom is crying every day. Or recently, like the governor of Niger State,
he says
or the governor of Oyo, or the governor of Ondo.
Otom says he would cry no more. He has empowered and enabled a 2000 Act that allows a vigilante, and he says the people henceforth will protect themselves.
Well,
so, apparently the governors are not as powerless as we believe.
No. Instead of having all these regional things that are going on, Amotekun, Ebubeago, and what what else you may have. Maybe we'll exhaust all the animals in the bush, you know. And also in addition to what the governors are also doing, different vigilante this and that. What the president should do by showing leadership is by drafting a legislation straight.
As a bill?
Yes, as a bill. A presidential, an executive bill. That's what I mean by leadership. Taking the lead and rallying the country behind it. First of all, rallying the party. His party has comfortable majority in the National Assembly. When he does that, for example, he takes up the issue of herdsmen who are terrorizing communities. He has to show leadership. Not only condemning it, he has to condemn it effectively and then match his words with action and then back it up with political leadership. An executive bill clearly outlawing open grazing in Nigeria. And let me tell you this, maybe people don't know. The National Economic Council,
perhaps on that note, is it not a state responsibility issue of open grazing and all that?
No, listen. You are talking of national security. You are talking of national security. And instead of allowing states, regions to come up with this, and this and that, and with all the associated insinuations. And you know, in this day of social media, you have to be very careful. Social media and fake news.
Absolutely.
People come up with stories that can inflame the nation. People come up with stories and then import pictures from other places and concoct stories. If you are not careful, there will be reprisals across the country. And I hope the national security agencies are alert to all that danger. That's why presidential leadership is important. You can't do without it.
Now, that report by the National Rufai Committee also suggests or recommended the creation of state police. Yes. So many other recommendations. Yes. What you're saying in effect is that the president should adopt that report, hand it over to the Attorney General, perhaps after the Federal Executive Council has deliberated over it, and send it as a bill to the National Assembly.
The president could have done that a long time ago. And I've been talking so much about that since even before the report was submitted. That look, the magnitude of the issues we are dealing with are such that you can't afford to say that, oh, the president is not a lawmaking arm. Let the parliamentarians, lawmakers, constituents put pressure on their people, and so it's never done. From pre-independence till now, even under the colonial masters, they were the people organizing Nigerian political leaders, midwifing conferences, moderating. And the president, not as a partisan politician, but as leader of the country, has a duty to do that. If the president had shown leadership on the area of restructuring, even on the area of devolution, which is not coterminous with restructuring. Restructuring is a much bigger and wider term.
Concept.
But it also has elements of devolution. So if we have consensus, now near consensus, on devolution, the other 2 weeks ago or so, the Northeast governors, I saw it on news, because of their helplessness as governors, came together, a people who hitherto were opposed to the idea of state police. In several of our meetings, the Governors Forum, between 2012 and 2020, when I left, I saw the body language, I saw the argument.
They opposed.
But now, I saw all of them unanimously saying, look, we're in support of state police. The governors of the Northwest too, both Rufai, Masari, who was
even the vice president has been the earliest advocate.
Yes, even former leaders of our country. Obasanjo, I said, look, go to restructuring to save the country. IBB said, go to restructuring. And I think to some degree, even General Abdul Salam. So look, you can't be the only one right, Mr. President. And all these people are wrong. No, it cannot be. It takes all of us to build and rebuild this nation. We are all equal stakeholders in this Nigerian project. And when all stakeholders, ethnic nationality groups, civil society groups, friends of Nigeria, everybody is saying restructuring, you can't be the only one, right? Restructuring does not mean dismemberment of Nigeria. I've given several lectures and talk shows on that. Those who say restructure Nigeria are trying to avoid what we are going through now. Give some of these powers back to the people. Let them hold their governors and other people accountable when they fail. You still retain your capacity to deal with issues that only the federal government can deal with. Now, you have a situation where the federal government is overburdened with activities, with powers it cannot utilize effectively. It is not in a position to do so.
Now it's time to shed those powers.
Listen, the federal government is building culverts in communities. Federal government is building walkways in communities. Federal government is distributing toilet rolls in communities. Federal government is doing N-Power, 10,000 to market women, feeding students, and so on. The federal government has veered off from its primary and essential role, which are the main things that keep us as a nation, that have to do with our pride as a people, as the largest African nation. And some of us are passionate about that because we're Pan-African.
Okay, now, in the absence of a presidential initiative drive, the matter rests with the National Assembly. There's an ongoing process to amend the Constitution.
Yes.
Some devolution of powers, most of them failed in the past.
Yes.
Do you think the National Assembly has constituted both chambers setting up committees, they can successfully push through devolution of powers and some form of restructuring?
Well, I think the signs are, they are positive signs. They are positive signs. But you see, in most of these things that have to do with the destiny and future of a people, the leader takes responsibility. It will be easier if the president were to use his bully pulpit, rally his party together, and I propose that, look, you have that report before you by your party, okay? You have an attorney general, a close person, I suppose. You have the vice president, a seasoned lawyer. You can put a team together at the executive level. You can even call your National Assembly
white paper
leadership.
on the report.
Yeah, you can have your National Assembly leadership of your party. I'm not talking of we in the PDP. No, 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 no. But if it does that and involves others, that is nationalistic. That will be appreciated. But you can start with that within your party. And then, so gentlemen, this report, rather, thank you very much for this exhaustive report. Let us see if it meets our, they look at it. And then if the president says, look, I want this thing done, discussed in the National Assembly, that will be helpful. But having said that, even without that, you know, the ongoing process is there. And in the Senate, I'm a member, because I came late, you know.
You're a member of the committee?
Of the, yes. I mean, the Senate president and the deputy Senate president were gracious. I'm a member. And I attended some of the meetings. And like I said last week, I'm pleased with the caliber of people we have, the experiences, former governors, former this, former that. And I believe that if we aggregate all of this, we should be able to draw the national minimum interest.
Are you pleased?
And take it.
Are you pleased with the speak? Because a long time that the committee was inaugurated and we are not seeing much after call for memorandum.
Well, I think the deputy Senate president, who is chairman, I'm not speaking for the Senate, I'm not speaking for the committee, for the committee either. But I mean, I'm talking about what I've noticed. The deputy Senate president is giving leadership. And I think everybody is behind and supporting. If we move fast enough, we should be able to address some of these issues. And this is why, even now, it is not too late for the president to take leadership. To say, look, I've heard too much cry about this issue of state.
Perhaps someone a meeting of the leadership of the National Assembly.
Yeah, no, his party. If he wants to broaden it, fine and good. He can discuss it even at the National Council of State meeting, for example. That's why we have all those organs. But he has not done so. And we should encourage and ask him to do that. Because that will fasten it. Because in the end, all of us are saying this, all of us are doing all of what we are doing in the national interest. We don't have to agree, because sometimes people, out of ignorance, say, oh, there are so many views about restructuring. For God's sake, let there even be more views.
The more the merrier.
The more the merrier. Democracy is a marketplace of ideas. You come with your own, I come with my own. And this idea of a national assembly, a national discourse and dialogue, it's not a monologue. No. We shouldn't bother ourselves when people disagree.
So some people...
wait a minute, let me make that. Okay. I come with the plight of my people from where I come from. You come with yours. You come from Nakasarawa. You come from Sokoto. You come from Ogun. When we gather with all these various inputs and challenges, we devolve it. All of us, we dissolve it. And then brew what will come out as a national interest.
National consensus.
National consensus. You can't have everything. People should come with an open mind. We panel beat it. Consult, dialogue, give and take in the national. That's how nations are built. Nations are built not as a result of a failure to engage or a failure to undertake a serious assignment like this and say, oh, I don't know the meaning of it. If you don't know the meaning, why is everybody talking about it?
You should ask and be educated. Now, just with the Electoral Act, Nigerians are concerned, even the international community, that is getting too close to another general election and it is not on. Now, this constitutional amendment process is getting close to another general election, and it's always good to get done with this because it's a long process. It has to go to the states and come back. That concern is there that we need to up the tempo in terms of the speed.
Well, what I've seen, Amechi, is that a number of these constitutional Electoral Act amendments, and again, I'm in the Electoral Committee.
Electoral Matters, Committee on Electoral Matters.
They are chaired by former governor of Kano, very experienced man, with a lot of colleagues who know what to do. I think they are, well, I just came to join them 3 months ago. But what I think is happening is that those issues in the electoral amendment that are constitutional, some of the issues are constitutional. You have to amend the constitution.
Absolutely.
Which is why you need the broadest possible coalition and force to push it through. And no one can do it more than the president of the republic. Now, those electoral issues that are constitutional will come to the Constitutional Committee, and they are being looked at. There are various subcommittees that at least I've read some of the reports. So I think we are on course. Can we fast track? Yes, we need to. Should civil society and every interested group put more pressure on us, all representatives, all members of the National Assembly, and also the president? Because mind you, it was the president who refused to sign the last one. Okay? He could have signed,
excuse that it was
he could have signed and then sent amendments if he had any. But they brought the excuse that it was too late. And if it was too late and you were genuinely concerned about deepening our democracy, mind you, somebody deepened the democracy to introduce electronic voting, to introduce card
reader in 2015.
Exactly. So if this president had that view, that commitment to broadening our democracy, if he said, okay, the time was too short, this is almost 2 years he has been in power.
Especially now that he will not be running again.
Yes. Well, even if he was running, you see, you must make sacrifice for a country. Well, first of all, I'm not aware of the meeting that some elders are calling Afebe Balola. I read about it, and I found the reaction of government very ridiculous. Panicky, unnecessarily panicky, and ridiculous. It is the right, fundamental right of Nigerians, whether they are young people, whether they are old people, whether they are elder statesmen or elder stateswomen, to meet and talk about the governance of their country. This country is ours. And anybody, including all of us, are servants of the people. So Nigerians have a right to meet under whatever name. The only thing you can demand is that any suggestions coming should be constructive and should be geared towards solving the national dilemma. Okay? But to say that, oh, because elders are meeting in whatever name, then you brand them as one kind, is, for me, highly unfortunate. In our democracy, if we must have a democracy, as I said, it's a marketplace of ideas.
Absolutely.
People can criticize, people can support. At the end of the day, the majority has their way, the minority must always have their say. And if elders don't meet and talk now, when do you expect them to talk? And which is why it is to avoid this divergence, this what do I say, these kinds of contradictory things going on that we call for presidential leadership. Now, talking about that, I'm not in support of any other form of national conference. No. You already have a National Assembly according to the Constitution. I'm one of those who feel that this Constitution is fundamentally flawed in so many ways. The over-centralization of powers at the center to the detriment of the people. The Constitution, as currently constituted, is not such that can promote productivity. Too much waste. Even the form of government, I disagree. I'm a participant in the presidential system, okay? But I disagree with it fundamentally. I believe that 1978 Constituent Assembly and the Constitution that came out of it, 1979 Constitution, were wrong in taking us away from what our founding fathers agreed Because of our heterogeneous nature, multi-ethnic, this diversity is good for us.
The idea behind it, as we were told, was a strong center, a strong president that will
which is why we are where we are. The strong man syndrome, strong center syndrome
has not helped.
Has collapsed. Take, for example, since the 80s, we have destroyed the police. And now we are talking of national, there's no security, there's no... How can you have... A nation cannot be secure if the police, which is a frontline law and order agency, has collapsed. No, they don't attend to it. It's not funded. It was neglected. And now they keep shipping away the powers of the police. They will take away road safety from it. They will take away NDLA from it. They will take away now civil defense from it. They will take away EFCC from it. EFCC is exercising powers of the police serious fraud office. So now, and then you concentrate it at center. You don't fund it. You don't train them. And this is the organ that has presence everywhere in every community. No vehicle, no communication, poorly paid, poorly trained, ignored, no morale. You can't have security. Meanwhile, the constitutional system says federal police. But you can't even fund them. You can't even fuel their patrol vehicles. The reason that has happened is because the federal government is overburdened with unnecessary... So when, gentlemen, when
with
we talk of restructuring...
with building culverts?
Yes, they are over with things that they shouldn't be concerned with. And our founding fathers knew that. That was why they decentralized governance. So the eastern region could drive development at their own pace. The western region could drive development at their own pace. The northern region could drive development, and later the Midwest region.
Now, if you're against it in national conference...
Just a minute.
Okay.
Now, the core duties of the federation, you can't perform them. Number one, national security, law and order. Failed. You can't form foreign affairs and diplomacy. Go to all our embassies. When was the last time Nigeria acquired embassy buildings? Before this 1979 constitution, presidential system. So this is why we say restructure Nigeria. We are all believers in a big, strong Nigerian nation. And I've said over and over, if it were possible for people like us, we want even Nigeria to be bigger. Because you need a big African nation that can play at the global level.
That's the argument now.
Yes.
That restructuring, can the amendment process guarantee it? Or you make mention of the 1963 constitution, yes, which some people are saying, for us to get there, what we need is an entirely new constitution, not piecemeal incremental amendments.
I agree. I was in the National Assembly, 2007.
In the House of Reps.
In the House of Reps, chairman of the Justice Committee at that time, for all that time, before I went to be governor in Bayelsa. I concede that all the amendment efforts by the National Assembly from that time till now have been, well, they have brought some goods here and there, but has not been holistic enough, have not been fundamental enough in nature and character. So now, I can see people talking about a new constitution. But if we build consensus, the National Assembly is there to pass it now. And this is why I'm calling on the president to show leadership. Take, for example, specific terms, because you asked for specificity, on ranching. This is one matter, this herdsmen crisis is one matter that has pushed Nigerians to the borderline and made the country, and it is now the reason so many people are talking of so many conspiracy theories. Islamization agenda, Fulanization agenda, president is this, president is... but you see, even if it is not true, because we should be very careful in drawing those conclusions about the leader of the country. But even if it is not true, perception, and the fact that these are your kinsmen and not enough action is being taken can lead to all kinds of insinuations. That in social media, in this age of social media and fake news, can set this country ablaze. Action needed. You need an executive bill to stop open grazing in the country. Open grazing. As a national security item. It's not for governor of Benue. It's not for...
But nothing stops the governor. Some governors have done that. Benue, Ekiti. Some states have done that.
Now, the reason you If you do it, listen, and this is why presidential leadership is important, which we are not seeing enough of. You know, if the president comes out and says, look, gentlemen, I don't want this. This country is going like this, like this. Now, set up a committee, fine-tune a law, a legislation. I will prefer that kind of effort to be led by the executive.
A law that
will
also
underscore the importance, the national importance, and that the presidency is behind.
A law that will also take into consideration how to transform the open grazing to another
That's
form
what I'm saying. It's two things. When you ban, that's why it is not working in states. I didn't do that in Bayelsa. Rather, I told all of them, I built abattoir, built a market, built a police post, security post. You understand? So I can register herdsmen with their cattle and protect them. And also warn them, anybody who comes into Bayelsa with weapons, arrest them. A committee that had the Fulani men, himself, the herdsmen, both the dealers and then the traders, the dealers and then the herdsmen, with the security people and natives, you know, from the areas. And it's working. And I said, you all go to a particular place owned by the government.
There's a recent anti-open grazing law in Bayelsa.
In Bayelsa. So the governor is starting on it. No, okay. The governor is.
Does it mean that your initiative didn't work?
Now, well, I don't want to speak for the government of Bayelsa. I stopped being governor. So, yes. But what I'm saying is that, you see, when you do that law or ban, and these people, mind you, this heading is an economic activity. So you are dealing with an economic problem also that has now become a security problem because of the management. If you say, don't graze, and the people are already in your state, where do you want them to be? What do you want them to do? This is why presidential, fair, presidential, impartial judgment and leadership is important. Because you need to make out money to fund the establishment of ranches, not Ruga, not colony. That was a bad idea, dead on arrival, because of the conceptualization and the presentation. It is a business. If CBN makes fund available today, governors will key into it. State governments will own the ranches. State governments have ranches. There are businessmen who can access funds and create ranches. It's an economic activity. And any header coming into a state can put their cattle there, be registered, be protected. There's water for them, for the cattle. There is security for them and the cattle. And there's a market in it, an integrated development.
But must it be a government initiative? The argument of some people is that
no state government can have money to fund it.
Yes.
So I couldn't implement the plan B after doing, say, go there. Because, you see, I got some grass even from Kaduna to plant special grass. I said, I did a pilot scheme. But you need a lot of money to be able to plant several hectares and have a fence and put all the things. I'd put some, and it was working for us. We didn't have any clashes. So you need the president to come up with that. A law to ban open grazing, one, and you back it up with a federally generated fund to that businessmen, states, local government, even businesses
the concern I raised earlier about this open grazing is that there was an attempt in the National Assembly to even ban it. But what we were told was that it is a legislation that is within the purview of the states.
No, it is a national security concern. Recently, 3 weeks ago or 2 weeks ago, in the Senate, there was a bill that was passed, sponsored by the statesman from Nasarawa, the former governor of Nasarawa, Senator Adamu. Yes, which is seeking to create a fund from which those who want money to establish ranches and so on can be obtained. So if it was beyond the power of the National Assembly, why did we pass that law? It falls under the purview of what I have always referred to as the power of the bully pulpit. You rally the country to solve an emergency problem. If you allow states to ban or not ban, and you now create because it is existential, people are dying. People can't go to farm. So people are angry. Sentiments are aroused. If you allow this, then people will say, don't enter our state. leave our state. And you can't, because by the constitution, there's freedom of movement. Even
across West Africa.
Across West Africa. The ECOWAS protocols, which was why I didn't go that route. I didn't go that route. But what can stem the tide is presidential effective leadership. To say, look, gentlemen, fine-tune a law, get your leadership involved, your attorney general and everybody, and the vice president, who is chairman of the NEC, because this is an economic issue. Look, people, you can say anything, but you see the genesis of this, part of it. Huh? There are so many theories. The Lake Chad is dying. The Lake Chad, not many people know that. The Lake Chad supports 25 to 30 million livelihoods.
So some people believe
Africa,
the receding Lake Chad is part of the reason why Boko Haram sprang up in the first place.
Because it will lead to insecurity. The Lake Chad and the Sahel have now become the hotbed of insurgency. Whether you're talking of Boko Haram, whether you're talking of ISWAP, and several groups that are drawing inspiration from them.
Is there a link between the restructuring you're proposing and an end to the growing insecurity? In other words, can it help to stem the tide?
Oh, yes. If the president gives leadership, we can achieve devolution, for example, which is a component of restructuring. As I said, restructuring is a bigger term. It includes, for example, a discussion about the form of government. And I've told you my views. I don't believe in the presidential system. I believe we should have gone the way of India, another
the one we initially agreed on.
Yeah, what we initially agreed on.
Parliamentary system. Yeah.
You know why? Because the country will not be subjected to all these types of ethnic and religious manipulations. Where somebody is wrong, somebody is bad, somebody is incompetent, somebody is doing things antithetical to the national interest, and if you raise anything, you say, they played the religious card, they played the ethnic card. You couldn't do it under Balewa because everybody elected their representative. There's no time you gather the whole of Nigeria. 200 million people with 500 million ethnic.
You always need an alliance to form a government.
Yes. And when you do that, everybody, all this playing to the religious sentiment, using religion to blackmail people who don't support you, that has been going on in this country, did not happen during the First Republic. No. Everybody elected their parliamentarian. Every party will field candidates from everywhere. And the leader, the majority party, runs the government. And you know what is important? Not only is it cheaper to run, you have the prime minister on his feet every day. If you
being part of the debate.
Oh, yes. In fact, he has to lead the debate. So all that is going on, this absence of presidential initiative and leadership that I'm shouting about, you can't have it in a presidential system. Because somebody
in a parliamentary system.
In a parliamentary system. But you see, the Americans created, while they were run away from the British colonial monarchy, they created a monarchy of their own.
In the form of the president.
In the form of the executive presidency. Then they were worried. They said, okay, this man may be like the queen or king, maybe too powerful. So let's add this. So they put impeachment, they put all these things. We imported a system that does not suit us. We need a system where we will have a parliamentary system. Everybody elect their legislators, they come to the parliament. And you see one other terrible thing we have done, and I reminded the Senate. This country is a nation of ethnic nationalities. It's a nation of proud
over 250 of them.
Yes, proud African kingdoms, some of which have existed for thousands of years ago. The British came, the UAC, Lord Lugard, later, and then using the constabularies, whether you are talking of the Niger Coast Constabulary or the constabulary of the Niger Coast Protectorate or of the coastal Niger, our own, or the Lagos Constabulary. They use all these people to harass the kings, sign treaties, force them into subjugation. One by one, all the kingdoms in Nigeria, present in Nigeria,
differently
for
pacified, as they called it.
Some even pillaged, like Benin, Overburdened. So this is the history of the. Now, in your constitution, have you given a role to the traditional leaders, the real owners of Nigeria? If you look at the people who signed the amalgamation document,
that's an interesting point.
You will see the kings.
Role for the
You will see the kings. And the British were not, they knew what they were doing.
So there's no way we can run a Nigerian society without roles for the people that were the constituent party in the
They
first
are
place.
the
That's what you're saying.
Yes. Look at Kanem Borno. It has existed for thousands of years. When the British finally came, they were assessing them from Tripoli. Some went from other places and went there. They met El Kanami on his stool. They met El Kanami, wrote letters to them, helping them to move around. The same thing when the Fulani Jihad had taken to root. The Sarki Muslimi, not the Sultan, it was the Lugard that called them Sultan. The Sarki Muslimi was there on his throne, administering territories, leading people, serving his people. They met him. So we have forgotten. Look at Overburdened. Lagos, 1851, they took over, appointed Akitoye, signed treaty. And they went to everywhere like that, you know what happened in Bayelsa, where the Akasa raid, okay? And then Jaja of Opobo, or Nana Shekri. They did it like that all across the country. We need a role.
We can't just wish them away,
can't wish them
like
away.
the British.
Now, even
when
the
they try to incorporate them with their indirect rule system.
The British recognize
like you have said, in considering parliamentary system, we have to look at our unique characteristics.
You have to
evolve something
a system that is
peculiar to us. Let's leave it at that.
Yes.
We're out of time. It's getting interesting at the end.
But can I have 2 minutes to summarize?
1 minute.
1 minute. Look, presidential leadership on national security. The president should convene a meeting, expanded meeting of the National Council of States. It should go beyond the required number, the entire National Assembly leadership. It should bring the entire judiciary leadership, okay? And bring the former presidents and leaders of Nigeria with all the governors, and even former vice presidents, if any, sit down with the service chiefs and analyze this.
That's an expanded National Council of
States. And then, that is the power of the pulpit, address the nation. In that address, he must rouse patriotism, because people have lost faith in Nigeria. He must tell them that the Nigerian dream is still alive. We have challenges. We are working hard to address it. Don't misunderstand government. We are working together. There may be problems. Okay. We are doing it. Then the president should visit the regions. He should visit the regions. All the regions, beginning with the Southeast, and has to meet all the traditional rulers and leaders of the Southeast.
Okay, we'll have to leave it here.
And sleep there. And go around all others. So that's what I mean by presidential leadership and authority.